Why we overthink everything. Your mind isn't always trying to harm you. Sometimes it overworks to keep you safe. And that's what makes overthinking so peculiar. At first, it doesn't always seem like an issue. It feels responsible. It feels cautious. It feels like preparation. You replay conversations to figure out what went wrong. You think about the future to avoid mistakes. You analyze someone's silence to understand its meaning. You imagine every possible outcome to feel prepared. But gradually the thinking shifts. It stops providing answers. It starts generating more questions. What if I said the wrong thing? What if they misunderstood me? What if I fail? What if I'm falling behind? What if this one choice ruins everything? What if everyone else knows something I don't? Suddenly, the mind becomes a room with no exits. You're no longer solving problems and you're stuck in circles. That's overthinking. Not just deep thinking, not intelligence, not caution. Overthinking happens when the mind seeks certainty in situations that may offer none. And modern life is full of uncertainty. Messages left unreplied, jobs without stability, relationships with unclear signals, a future that changes rapidly, comparisons on social media, too many choices, too many opinions, too much information, not enough peace. So the brain does what it's designed to do. It scans for danger. It predicts. It prepares. It tries to protect you before anything goes wrong. For most of human history, this was helpful. A cautious mind could spot danger early. A thoughtful mind could avoid errors. A social mind could detect rejection before it became exile. The human brain survives by asking, what could happen next? But today that question never ends, because threats are no longer just physical. They're emotional, social, financial, digital, and imagined, future-based. A look from someone can feel threatening. A message left unread can feel threatening. A career choice can feel threatening. An online post can feel threatening. A memory from years ago can feel threatening. Your brain still uses ancient survival tools, but now it applies them to modern uncertainty. This is why overthinking feels so convincing. It feels protective, but protection can become a prison. Psychologists often link repetitive negative thinking with rumination and worry. Rumination usually revolves around past pain or distress, while worry often focuses on future threats. The American Psychiatric Association defines rumination as repetitive thinking about negative feelings and distress, noting it can contribute to anxiety or depression and worsen existing conditions. This doesn't mean every overthinker has a disorder. Everyone overthinks sometimes, but it means the cycle can become heavy when the mind repeats distress without resolution. And that's the key word, resolution. Normal thinking moves forward and it helps you understand, it helps you decide, it helps you act. Overthinking often feels active but doesn't progress. It repeats, it circles the same fear from different angles. It reopens the same memory with new pain. It asks the same question with slightly different words. Did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? That's why overthinking can be exhausting and you're not resting. You're mentally pacing inside your own head. And the strange thing is that overthinking often gives a false sense of control. If you keep thinking, maybe you can prevent pain. If you replay every detail, maybe you can find hidden meaning. If you predict every outcome, maybe nothing will surprise you. But life doesn't work that way. Some people will misunderstand you. Some choices will be uncertain. Some outcomes can't be predicted. Some answers will never come. Some silence means nothing. Some mistakes are survivable. But the overthinking mind struggles with maybe. It wants proof. It wants certainty. It wants emotional safety before moving forward. So it waits and thinks and waits and thinks. This is where overthinking becomes a trap, because the mind believes it's reducing fear, but often it's feeding it. Every replay makes the memory feel more important. Every imagined disaster makes the future feel more dangerous. Every possible interpretation makes the situation less clear. The brain begins to mistake repetition for truth. If I keep thinking about it, it must matter. If I feel anxious, something must be wrong. If I can imagine it happening, maybe it will happen. But imagination isn't evidence. Fear isn't prophecy, and repetition isn't wisdom. It's just repetition. Research describes rumination as repetitive negative thinking involved in psychological distress. Again, this matters not because every worried thought is harmful, but because loops can train the brain. The more the mind practices fear, the more fluent fear becomes. The more it practices replaying, the easier replaying gets. The more it expects rejection, the faster rejection appears in neutral situations. A short reply becomes anger. A delayed message becomes abandonment. A quiet room becomes judgment. A small mistake becomes identity. And this is where overthinking becomes deeply personal. Because people rarely overthink things they don't care about. You overthink the message because the relationship matters. You overthink the decision because the future matters. You overthink the mistake because your image matters. You overthink the silence because belonging matters. Underneath overthinking is often vulnerability, the need to be accepted, the need to be safe, the need to be understood, the need to maintain control, the need not to be hurt again. So overthinking isn't just thinking too much. It's thinking with an emotional wound beneath. That's why telling someone just stop overthinking rarely helps. If it were that simple, they would have stopped already. The mind loops not because it enjoys it. It loops because something inside doesn't feel safe enough to let go. This is also why modern life worsens overthinking. We live in a world full of unfinished signals. A typing bubble appears, then disappears. A message is seen but not answered. A post gets views but no response. Someone follows you, then unfollows. A workplace says, "We'll let you know." A friend says, "I'm fine," but sounds different. A relationship has no label. A career path has no guarantee. The mind hates unfinished signals. It tries to complete them. So it invents possibilities. Maybe they're angry. Maybe I failed. Maybe they found someone else. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe something bad is coming. Overthinking is often the mind trying to finish a story with missing pages. And the internet gives us more missing pages than ever because we see fragments of people, fragments of success, fragments of beauty, fragments of opinions, fragments of lifestyles, fragments of conflict, fragments of other people's lives. But the brain tries to build full stories from fragments. That's dangerous because fragments aren't reality. They're edited glimpses, yet we compare our full life to someone else's selected moment. Then we wonder why the mind feels restless. Overthinking also grows when choices multiply. A person today is constantly asked to choose what career, what city, what identity, what relationship, what diet, what belief, what content, what path. What version of yourself should you become? Choice can be freedom, but too much choice can be pressure because every option creates fear of choosing wrong. And every wrong choice can feel like a lost life. So the mind keeps calculating, but no calculation removes the risk of being alive. This is the bigger picture. Overthinking isn't just a personal habit. It's a symptom of a world giving people too much information and not enough certainty. Too many signals and not enough meaning. Too many options and not enough grounding. Too many comparisons and not enough belonging. The human brain was built to solve problems, but now it faces problems it can't fully solve. Global events, economic pressure, digital identity, social comparison, artificial intelligence, future uncertainty, relationship ambiguity, career instability. The mind tries to carry all of it, and sometimes it collapses into loops, not because it's weak, but because it was never meant to process the whole world at once. That's why overthinking often happens at night. When the noise finally stops, the mind speaks. No work tasks, no conversations, no screens, at least for a moment, no distractions. So the thoughts you avoided all day begin to surface. The conversation, the mistake, the decision, the future, the fear, the memory. Night becomes a stage, and the mind, the projector, one scene after another. But here's the twist. Overthinking feels like searching for truth, but often it's searching for emotional permission. Permission to move on. Permission to stop blaming yourself. Permission to make choices without knowing everything. Permission to let someone misunderstand you. Permission to accept that some questions don't have clear answers. Permission to live without perfect certainty. That's what overthinking really wants. Not always information. Safety. The mind says, I need to think more. But the heart may say, I need to feel safe enough to stop. And that changes everything. Because the answer to overthinking isn't to become careless. It's not to ignore problems. It's not to pretend nothing matters. Thinking is useful. Reflection is useful. Planning is useful. Learning from mistakes is useful. But there's a line between reflection and punishment. Reflection asks, what can I learn? Overthinking asks, how can I torment myself with every possible version of this? Reflection leads to action. Overthinking delays action. Reflection makes the future clearer. Overthinking makes the future heavier. The difference isn't how much you think. It's whether your thinking gives you direction. So the real question isn't, how do I stop thinking? It's, is this thought helping me act or keeping me afraid? Because the goal isn't an empty mind. The goal is a mind that knows when to think and when to return to life. A mind that notices fear without obeying it. A mind that feels uncertainty without building a prison around it. A mind that can say, maybe I don't know yet, and still I can take the next step. That's not easy, but it's powerful because the future will never offer complete certainty. People will never give perfect signals. Life will never remove all risk, and the mind will never stop trying to protect you. But you can learn to see when protection becomes a loop, when analysis turns into avoidance, when preparation becomes fear, when thinking becomes a cage. And maybe that's true freedom, not never overthinking, but finally seeing the loop while inside it. And realizing you don't have to follow every thought to the end. Some thoughts are warnings, some are memories, some are habits, some are fears disguised as facts, and some are just noise. Your mind is powerful, but not every thought deserves the spotlight. If this changed how you see the world, open another tab with us. Subscribe to Curiosity tab.